Benjamin Gaulon is an artist, researcher, educator. He's the co-founder of No School in Burgundy and associate professor at Parsons Paris. Benjamin, used to? Okay, okay, it's all yours now.
Thank you. Well, thank you for the invitation, and thank you for being here. So yeah, I'm Ben. I'm going to show some flashing images, just in case you have an issue with that. Quite a lot, actually. So I go by the name Recyclism. It's my kind of artist name. And I will try to explain a little bit why or what it means. I like diagrams more and more. I don't know, I'm really obsessed with those. This one is from the 70s, and it talks about how, you know, how we make things and how they get seen. So like starting from a creator, whether it's a designer, an artist, or a scientist, whatever, make something that's seen in a small space, like now, I guess. And that become part of a cultural environment that will become, you know, eventually pop culture somehow, and that will influence you as a person. So this idea of recyclism is also sampling or cycle of culture. So one of my kind of influence, I guess, starting this work in the early 2000s was the Y2K, or the bug de l'an 2000, potential doomsday that we're supposed to makes everything collapse because the computers were not ready to change to the millennial. And I think that actually had quite an impact on me, maybe. I really thought about it later, but how, you know, when things stop working, we always worried or question whether it's the computer or the presentation, but it's kind of make us think of the system that we normally don't look at or don't see, because it works, because you plug it and it functions, or sometimes it doesn't. And that's when you're like, where's the issue? I'm also very interested in how we consume technology, or happy about it. Mostly men are, at least, in this selection. Well, no. But then what happened to it? Mostly after we are done using it. And I started this in early 2005 or something, and there was not a lot of information about where things go when we don't use it. And also more recently, I got interested in the mining, or the kind of before we even start using those devices, what they are and how they come to be. So this is the lithium, for example, mining. And copper, it's like almost gone. So this is really a big space. So another pop culture influence through my work.
I said the hip hop, the hip,
well,
the hip hop, you don't stop the rock and do the bang bang boogie, say up jump the boogie.
Is hip hop culture and rap music especially, and how the kind of technological hacking in place of, like, you know, turning turntables into instrument, sampling become really important, and I think change how we make music forever. And I think, to me, this is a very influential aspect of, I guess, yeah, being a person in this world. And so in this process of, like, you know, making things or seeing them, a lot of things get trashed, right, or don't actually make it. And I got really interested in this idea of trash, also thinking of, you know, this Y2K bug, and how maybe someday everything will be gone, because everything is just binary. And that kind of got me to think about how computers were designed, or at least still are, you know, using the analogy of the physical world. So like you have a desktop, you have files and folder, you have a trash can and a recycle bin. And this trash can was kind of exciting to me to think of, you know, property, or the idea of property in the digital. When you think of something on the street being trash, you can just pick it up, it's free. So does it apply to the digital? So I thought of making this website where people could share the trash. So it was like file sharing of trash, and then the trash will be sorted by categories, like a recycling center. And funny enough, I made this website back then, it was like 2001, I think, in Flash, and now you can't see it because it's obsolete, and Flash is no longer available on your browser. So this kind of idea of trash kind of stuck to me, and also because it came by accident. I deleted a file on my computer, and then trying to recover it, I got a glitch, damaged version of this file. So I thought, like when you trash something in a bin and pick it up, it's all trashed and damaged. So in a way, this trash can is actually a trash can. It's like composting. So this got me kind of thinking about glitch and what it means, how it happens. So basically, when you delete something on your computer, you're not actually deleting anything. You're just telling your computer those bits of memory are free to be used. And if you don't use them, the file is still there, but maybe some part have been overwritten, so the file is kind of partially gone. So this idea of glitching is basically when a 0 and a 1 get swapped, and by whatever. Sometimes it's email, sometimes it's Instagram, sometimes it's your computer cosmic rays influence or whatever, or bug. And so this idea of a glitch to me was really interesting. How, as I said, will these broken things reveal a system? So I started playing with it and making, first of all, manually trying to see how it works and how I could re-break files. So then I made a little piece of code that would allow me to load a file, any file, and then swap 0 and 1s around and see what happened when I try to save those results. So then you get very different style based on the type of images, because the compression and file format give you different aesthetic. So this is the same image being glitched over and over, actually once each time. And then, so I decided to make a tool so people could also play with that. So it was online, you could upload an image, you get a glitch version of that image. And it was online for maybe 5 or 6 years. So I got like 100,000 of images. So I've also collected those as a kind of archaeology of the time and the kind of images that people shared back then. More recently, I made a video version, so you could also glitch yourself. And that came with a website called UGlitch, where you could upload this glitch version of yourself, as YouTube. And then part of this project, I realized it was possible to glitch the desktop of your computer, not just the webcam. So I thought it would be interesting to make something with this option. And that comes in a part of my research that I call retail poisoning, which is this idea of like attacking shops or consumerism spaces, could be online or offline. And it's inspired by... What the fuck do you think you're doing? Torrent poisoning, which is a practice by companies such as, Universal, Sony, and so on. When BitTorrent was really active, people would, download music, film, software. And so those companies decided to poison the network, and they put damaged file, or they created fake information or fake website. Madonna released an album, and you could hear her say, "What the fuck do you think you're doing?" as an MP3 of her album, and that got backfire. People hacked her website after released all her music. So I thought it'd be interesting to make kind of a type of action where I'm directly so this is so here, installing Safari on the computer. to do. And I've been doing also workshops. I mean, it's all a different part of my work, but and I try to make all of these projects open source when I can, or release the code and make this available, because I think it's important to share and also to contribute to the community of tools that I use also in my work. And from like kind of code, I got really into think about electronic and hardware, and through also kind of a coincidence or another pop culture influence, which is video game. And one day on a flea market, I found Nintendo game controllers, 6 of them, and I thought, oh, it would be cool to make something with it. And then I made this project called the RES, and it's basically a music instrument. Each controller is a different band member, and you can play music together. So it usually is displayed like that. There's no screen and no instructions, and you kind of figure out yourself. I made an open source version, so if you want to make one, you can also. And this is kind of what it sounds like. So those are, yeah, guys I found in Dublin. There's not a lot of rappers in Ireland, but I found them. So like from playing with kind of obsolete media, like this game controller, I learned a lot that, well, they have 8 buttons because there's a chip in it that can only save 1 byte, so 8, 0 or 1. So it was really, you know, I thought it was interesting as a tool to learn about electronic, and also to start to think about what do we do with this, you know? There's a lot of it. So I started doing workshops called the e-waste workshop, where people would be invited to hack broken devices to make projects. So like self-driving robot, or like interface for music, or grinding machines. So yeah, all kind of hacking of devices, whatever we find, until Minitel also. I will talk about the Minitel also. So this is kind of this idea of like repurposing broken electronic to make musical instrument, or kind of visual sculptural pieces. Yeah, and kind of exploring this latent potential, right, of devices. And through this workshop, well, it was fun, but I also wanted to make something myself. So I decided to take all the stuff I had in my studio one day and make this piece called Refunk Media. And it's a line of broken devices or obsolete devices, they kind of work, that I interconnect together. And it's like a sound and visual piece. And it's meant to work as like a sampling, but you're sampling hardware and electronic. All right. And I decided it would be interesting to invite other artists to collaborate with me. So this is 3 friends that got me to then, you know, start like this, and we end up with this line of devices where everything do something or is connected to something else. Sounds like that. So you have like mixer from the 80s, MO5 Thomson computers, NES, Atari, Amstrad computers with tape, like for the programs. Cameras, a lot of video cameras from the 80s. So it's, yeah. So there's a text by J.C. Parika and Garnet Ertz that talks about this idea of zombie media, and I really like this, how they see circuit bending as a zombification of, you know, dead or so-called dead media. So yeah, this became like a series. We've done many versions of it. At some point we wanted to make a kilometer-long line, but it was really difficult to find. So we thought maybe we do like 10 meter and then over time, but it's gonna take a while. So we've done maybe 10 versions or something. And every time we have to redo it, we also try to get local product waste from So like China, actually in China it was very difficult because they don't keep old electronic. So a lot of the old electronic we got was imported from Japan, but beautiful like TV and stuff. In Taiwan was also interesting because a lot of the electronic were made in Taiwan back, well, at least for the devices we use. Now it's more in China, but at the time it was in Taiwan. So we had like people who used to work in these places came and were really excited about seeing some of the work there. And more recently, we discovered that finding CRT screen or big television is very difficult. They're already gone. So now we have flat screen because they are also obsolete. I wanted to evolve this project also to look at handheld electronic and make it also easier to set up and travel and make a version that would be modular. So this is the Refunk Media Modular, and the idea is that you can connect those things together and they interact also sound and visual and kinetic, there's motors. So this is a different version. Right, so another retail poisoning action came by accident. I found at a friend's house a broken Kindle, and I was like, oh my god, this is beautiful. It's art. It's a glitch Kindle, so I can't do anything. And next to my studio, there was a laser engraving studio, so I thought, well, I'm going to sign it, and now it's art. And I can also sell it on Amazon as a broken Kindle with this idea of retail poisoning. I was really hoping they would try to sue me or threaten to sue me because it would be better for the project, but they don't care. So yeah, I show it like, you know, do with painting, because, you know, like this e-paper, they work, it's a bit like a printer. You send electricity, you change the image, and then you don't need electricity. You can, so it means it's like media art with no battery or electricity, which I do like, and I'm trying to go there more and more. All right, so another big influence, as I mentioned, with hip-hop culture is graffiti and street art, and I was never really good with spray paint, so I did more different kind of thing that were involving more technology. I'm not going to show all of it, but this project
Sunday night, 8:30. I put
started
the
with
kids
this
down,
video.
and I put the baby monitor on like I always do, and I saw two people floating in space. And the woman I spoke to, of course, is a customer service woman, and she could not believe it. She goes, "You're really not supposed to see anything past 150 feet.
This is some amazing baby monitor you've got.
My parents believe my son has magical powers. It's just really neat, and I don't know, I've been enjoying every minute of it.
So this mother on a baby monitor received the NASA, and I was like, okay, I want to hack the NASA also. So I started looking into it. It's not that straightforward, but it turned out if you have a receiver, I mean, this is in 2008, and it's also, was 7. It's also interesting because I was going to be dad first time, and my internet started to show me things about being parents, and that's how I end up on this video. So that's the first layer of surveillance. But it turns out that those system, so why she received this video is because she has a 2.4 gigahertz video receiver, which she can then have a camera in a baby room and then a monitor in the living room. But if somebody else is emitting on the same frequency, then you get their signal. So there's no encryption, it's like radio, you're tuning. So I found a device that would allow me to record and search for frequencies. So I started doing that, walking around Europe and getting cameras in all kind of strange places, including like changing room. Of course, you're looking at the staff more than, this is Amsterdam. And you have sounds, it's not just the image. And this actually in Amsterdam, there was so many. When I went there, I just made a movie just walking on the street, and we just switch from TV to TVs. So I also started making self-portrait. You know, as an artist, you have to go through the series of self-portraits. So this is me. on CCTV. And what I wanted was to make that visible. So the idea was to put those devices on the street and let people see in real time their image or where they were being filmed. Yeah. And then I also made workshops where you could search your city and with the devices, because it's quite fun. You get, the closer you are to the signal, the better the image. So it's like, yeah, chasing signals in the city and you're mapping it. So now those devices are obsolete. They're not very much in use anymore. Now people use IP cameras, which is worse because you can access it remotely without hacking physically on the street. All right, another kind of project around street art and graffiti, and I found this reference only recently, but it seems appropriate for some reason, is called LSD, for light to sound device. And it was an attempt to look at how in a public space monitors and screen have been more and more visible. And I was living in Ireland at the time, and I think like every bar, every places you go, there's a lot of TVs. So I wanted to make a device that could make that kind of visual noise a different type of noise. I'd like to organize an exhibition on ATM machine. I think it'd be a nice space for exhibition. So yeah, this is basically turning light into sound, or sound frequencies. So that was a friend who, when I show him the project, but I think it's actually better than my use of the friend. So yeah, I got also into broken devices. So this is a series of portraits of people through their broken phone. So I asked them broken phone and I redraw it and scale it up. So it's like Black Mirror was a better name, but it was taken. Another thing which for me was growing up in France is the Minitel. So the Minitel is a terminal, for those who don't know it, that we had in France in the 80s that would allow us to go on connected services for doing your bank or chat rooms and so on. So basically the web, but before the web. But with a very centralized government-run system, and you pay to have this device, and you were charged by the minute. Using it was quite expensive. And there are, well, broken devices that still work, and there's still a lot of them. So with a friend, we created IoDT, which is the Internet of Dead Things Institute, where we are dedicated to well, find new purpose for obsolete devices and somehow connect them maybe to the internet when it's appropriate. So we started with the Minitel. So as I mentioned, there was a lot of those devices. They only stopped the service in 2012. So until 2012, it was still possible to use a Minitel to check your bank or whatever, your exam result and things like that. There were dating sites. I mean, there was everything that we think of. So we created Minitels. It's the idea of an operating system for the Minitel. And this is a bit of a promo video.
I am not regular. I will not give you regular. I am not regular. I will not give you regular. am not regular. I will not give you regular. I am not regular.
Okay, so this is our promo video. We took the iPhone music as an inspiration. So I am here. I'm in my local cafe, checking my Wi-Fi network to connect my Minitel, and then I can go on my emails or play games. So we then present them as like Apple Store or Minitel store. Where people can check our latest softwares and innovation. So this is the setup. We added headphones because there's no audio input or output. There's also no mouse, right? It's a terminal, so you only have to use the keyboard. So we have to add a little sheet for certain shortcuts and stuff, but mostly it's pretty user-friendly. So, now, well, 2019 was very interesting for different reasons, but then with Dasha we started on our second year no school, and we're really happy. This was 11th of March 2020, and we're really happy. We just signed everything and it was going to happen. And then the day after, our president told us that we had to be locked down for, well, we didn't know how long, but actually it was very long, or at least it felt very long. And this got me to look at, well, first of all, I was very limited in my options, and also to start to think of the technology that I repurpose or hacked that I can't repurpose or hack. And very often when I do those workshops, we end up with a bunch of like plastic and things, and we don't know what to do with it. So then I start to think, you know, what can I do with this? And the starting point also of this was trying to look at the plastic of electronic waste as some kind of material I could use for another project, which ended up not being what I did with it. But anyway, so this is something we kind of looked at in the last 2 days here as a workshop, is the difference between, you know, end of use and end of life, and how we can, you know, upgrade something, repurpose it or zombify it, or when it's really broken, what happened with it, what can we do with it. So this was me in my basement shredding Minitel into pieces, as I said, initially for another project, but it turned out to be more interesting by itself. So then I got this kind of summary of the object, which I call l'essence même. Yeah. So this is a Minitel, another type of Minitel, and this NEC computers from the early 2000s. And then I thought it'd be interesting to play with the idea of internet compression. So like, you know, when you compress things for the web, so this is a internet compression of a TP-Link router. And another work in this series was looking at this digital picture frame that people use. It's like playing slideshows, and those are already obsolete. So I had a bunch of them. I was not sure what to do with it, and I thought, what about shredding the casing and putting it on the screen itself, and in a way hiding, you know, we look at screen all the time, but we don't really think about how it's made and what it's made of. So it's like hiding what you don't want to see somewhere. And more recently, I thought, okay, what about exploring this idea of core samples? So like, you know, in for mining, you would make core samples, you extract like this. So what if I was like mining this electronic into core samples? So I started shredding more, and then I had to invest in a bigger shredder because I used to have a paper shredder as a tool. And then I made this core sample. So this is the same PC computer that you saw earlier, but this time with the motherboard and most of the plastic. And then today we made a core sample here, well, in 2 days, of what we found here for the workshop. So I can. So you can have a look. So yeah, this is it. I will skip quickly to some of this stuff. It's not. This is pre-no school, an event that I was organizing.
Hashtag networked.
Making crap out of garbage.
So anything you draw becomes the waveform of the instrument.
I mean, come on. Leave your phone by your bed.
The script and the word aren't aligned anymore.
Computing, extraction,
Propaganda of innovation.
Resilience and resistance.
Poisoning.
Extraction.
pollution,
Batteries.
science,
Stuff.
lol.
La guerre technologique mondiale.
So yeah, I was using this idea of cradle to grave, it's the life cycle assessment, and as a discussion point for the event. So we were like looking at extraction, design, usage, all these steps of this technology being in our life until they are not. And then this got us with Dasha so to create No School, you mentioned it, which is a summer school where we have people coming from all over, looking at technology critically, their impact on the environment, how we can make things differently, telling stories, doing open source publishing, hardware hacking, circuit bending, media archaeology, a lot of things. Live coding also. So yeah, and we got a space now since this summer. So it's a small space. We're hoping to start a residency program also. Yeah. Voila. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, my inspiration, as I mentioned, is this idea of like core sample. So I'm thinking more of a long line, kind of poop kind of type of thing. But I mean, of course, you could do anything with it. It's slightly toxic, so that's the problem. So I wouldn't necessarily like make a bowl or plate with it. No. I'm sure there are probably research done there. I hope there are. For me, it was kind of the idea of like, reducing this waste and kind of encapsulating it somehow. So it's not necessarily what I'm really interested in terms of like exploring the material further. It's still warm.
Any other question?
Super interesting presentation. Thank you very much. I was just wondering, because especially in the beginning, you're talking about collecting trash, and you showed, kind of some works that were the outcome of the kind of trash you collected. But what was the kind of selection process of what's trash that's worth saving?
Yeah.
And you also talked about this somewhat with the hardware stuff of like what's obsolete, what's dead, so what kind of visual media? How did you select basically what you would use and yeah.
So yeah, I mean a lot of the stuff would be kind of media player or things that are like sounds or visual, so like video games or tape player, radio, all kind of thing. And one aspect that I think is maybe also why I'm shredding stuff now is it's getting more and more difficult to find older devices like that. And the newest one are really difficult to hack even, because it's micro electronic, so it's very difficult to have any control over it. It's mostly a single chip that do everything. When those older circuits, you can touch it, you can change things. It's very manual. So I think there is a limit to this kind of practice, or at least the availability of this material or these resources. But yeah, mostly looking at from the 50s to the 80s, 90s, electronic, you get really interesting stuff. After, it's a bit more complicated.
Anybody else? Any other question?
Yeah.
Wait.
Experiment? You still do poisoning?
Retail, yeah. I mean, I've done workshops also where we, like it was a short time, but it was quite fun. Where we had people, we bought H&M T-shirt, we spray painted the Gap logo, and then put them back in the store. Play with this kind of The idea is also to be playful and not necessarily like have few rules. Like one is don't create problems for the people working there or more work for them. Like don't make them clean up after yourself, but anything else can go, kind of thing. So one other ones we made like fake dead pixel stickers to put on big fancy TV on a shop. So we put all of this kind of stuff. But I don't, I see IoDT, the Minitel project, is a bit in line with that in a way, even though we haven't put it in a store yet. But I think it'd be interesting to put a Minitel somewhere. It'd be fun.
You're based in France?
Yeah, between Paris and Nevers, where I do the No School.
And No School is in Paris?
No, in Nevers, French countryside.
Burgundy.
Yeah.
Burgundy?
Small town, 2 hours from Paris.
Somebody else? Any other question?
Then we can grab a drink.
I think so. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome to have a drink and come back for the performance of Yamila at 8 p.m. Here we go.